Welcome back. You're watching Storyboard 18 on CNBC TV18. I'm Delshad Irani, and I'm in conversation with Mark Schneider, the CEO of Nestle. Let me go back a little bit to the bottom line again and talk about something that sort of ties all three of them in, right? Which is purpose. And purpose, of course, has been a bit of a buzzword for the last over a decade almost. And every company is using the term purpose in everything from their marketing communications to internal. What do you make of using purpose as a sort of a signal to the world? And how has Nestle sort of tied that into some of the initiatives that it has done? And because it has received a lot of criticism, from investors as well as consumers.
Yeah.
So what do you make of the trend?
Yeah. Look, purpose is important. I mean, you want to know what you go to work for, what you're trying to do. And when it comes to a large organization, thousands of people in a factory or a research and development center, it's hard to motivate someone by the bottom line only and by profits. So it is about what you do for society, what you do for people around you. But it is important not to overdo it and also understand we're doing this within the confines of a publicly quoted company and a company that belongs to investors and that needs to offer decent returns to these investors. And so the balance between the two, to me, is the important thing. Purpose has been criticized when it has been blown out of proportion, but it is important. And profits have been criticized in the 80s and 90s in the world of shareholder-only thinking when they were blown out of proportion. To me, it comes down to balance. You need to have a purpose in life, otherwise, it's a bit meaningless. But you also have to live your life according to some of the economic rules that we're all subject to.
Just extending that thought on purpose and expectations that consumers have today from corporations. I mean, it's beyond just delivering a great product, right? They want companies, as you mentioned, to stand for something. Yeah. And one space that we saw that in happening was, of course, with the war that's going on between Russia and Ukraine. So what is your stance on companies pulling out their operations and some of their brands? And Nestle did that in a limited fashion, of course, keeping some essential products in the market. Yeah. Where are you on that front?
Yeah. So look, I think I'm speaking for everyone in saying that we wish for nothing more than for peace. But we had a very strong presence both in Russia and the Ukraine. What stands out in my view is the strong efforts we've undertaken as a company to support the Ukraine in this war. So we've been bringing hundreds of tons, by now more than 1,000 tons of food and much needed baby food, for example, medical nutrition into the country, at times under pretty significant danger. We kept operating our facilities in the Ukraine. We had 3 manufacturing facilities there. One we had to temporarily shut down because of war action, but 2 others we kept working. So keeping up essential food supply to the people of Ukraine was important. Our people signed up to house hundreds of Ukrainian refugees. So I think there was a lot of strong solidarity with the people of Ukraine. When it comes to Russia, we clearly discontinued and suspended some international brands such as Nespresso, Kit Kat, Nesquik, to cite a few examples. But on essentials, on parts like what I mentioned before, medical nutrition or infant nutrition, we also have a long-standing history that when we serve a market, we do not walk away at times of conflict. Whenever it's possible safely to continue supply, we believe there is a responsibility that people have. There is a reason why food is usually exempted from sanctions, just like medical supplies, and we wanted to live up to that ethos.
Now, the food space, of course, especially in the past 2 years, again, accelerated by the pandemic, has been booming. We've seen a lot of new players emerging, small companies, D2C products emerging, and we're also seeing large corporations getting into the FMCG space. So what is your reading of these sort of emerging brands? And do you see them as a collective threat, perhaps? And a follow-up to that question, what's your acquisition strategy?
Yeah. So let me say first and foremost, I'm incredibly proud, especially in this country, what the Nestle India team has made out of these 2 iconic brands, Nescafe and Kit Kat. So the development of both of these has been tremendous. And Now, in the face of these small challenger brands, I think the way to compete and the way to succeed is to take a story from their playbook. And basically, what people want is novelty. They don't want the same product day in, day out for the next 10 years. So what you have to do is couple the trust that people have in these iconic brands with that endless seeking of novelty. And that's why variety and limited series and special editions and all of those, I think, keep brands alive and vibrant. You can also say the same thing about global versus local. So Kit Kat and Nescafe are global brands, but nothing stands in the way of giving these global brands local attributes and making them particularly appealing to a local population. That could be either through the packaging or some of the special flavors you put in. And so this is, in my view, the way, in the face of these challenger brands, to keep global iconic brands alive and relevant to consumers. When it comes to acquisitions across the board, globally and across our categories, very open to it. I think we have a good acquisition track record over the past years. But let me also say we've been always very selective here and commercially sound. It's easy in the face of sky-high valuations to get carried away. And I think especially before prices recently came down, at a day and age when valuations were really high, it would have been easy to overpay here and there. I think we've been quite sensitive to that. We dialed up some of the divestitures we had to do at times when valuations were really strong, but we were very selective on new acquisitions. But going forward, look, at the right price, we're open for business.
So I read that you try every new product and even perhaps innovation that comes out of Nestle. So do you generally sort of give your feedback then as the CEO or a consumer?
So you're quite right. I'm a self-proclaimed product junkie. I love new products and their features and how they stack up compared to what was on the market previously. I also believe it is essentially the product that fills a brand with life. You know, a brand without constant, meaningful innovation doesn't stay alive. And so that's why the product focus is important. I'm very blessed that basically just upstairs from my office in Switzerland, there is a trial kitchen. And so the happiest moments I spend in that trial kitchen, just sampling new products. But you're touching on a very important point. When you give your feedback, you have to give your feedback as one more voice and not as the directive voice of the CEO. Because at the end of the day, what matters in fast-moving consumer goods is how appealing something is to a broader public. If I feel very rarely that something is clearly not ready, I would be more directive. But if it comes down to just, my personal taste as opposed to someone else's taste, this is where you have to be democratic. And in the face of strong data that consumers wanted, I would always go with that data. If there's some finishing touches here and there that you can offer, I think it's one more opinion that will help the team. And it's very, very rare. In fact, can't recollect for the last few years a situation where I would say, look, this one, sorry, we have to stop. And that also, in a sense, is a testament to the strength of the product development that happens inside the company.
India and global markets, how would you sum up your outlook for India and global markets for the time to come?
Yeah. So on India, I'm definitely more optimistic than on global markets in general. Global markets, I think short term, there is a definite risk of a recession, at the very least in Western Europe, but maybe stretching beyond that to the United States. And so that's why the global economic outlook right now is kind of dim. That has to do with the war, it has to do with rising interest rates, and also the fact that maybe in the face of inflation, the consumers will pull back when it comes to volumes in some markets, in some categories. India, I think, I admire the economic wisdom of the chart and the course it has taken, and I think that's paying off fully now. And then, of course, when it comes to the next 5 to 10 years, you see that huge demographic dividend that India has. So many major markets around the world will start shrinking. India will keep growing when it comes to the workforce, when it comes to people in their peak earning years. And that always goes hand in hand with significant economic opportunities. So we're very bullish. There was a reason why our board of directors came here, because they wanted to see and experience the opportunities firsthand. And we're very, very excited of making the most of that.
Thank you so much for your time, Mark. It was lovely chatting with you, and we hope to catch you again on your next trip to India.
Thanks for having me, and I can promise you I'll be back before 5 years from now.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for watching Storyboard 18. That's all from us. Keep watching. You can catch more conversations with business leaders and marketers on Storyboard 18, CNBC TV 18. Thank you.